everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Male Perspective. I am your host, Lana Reid, and today on this day, I have the pleasure of sitting down with a gentleman by the name of Myron Tucker. He's a motivational speaker, manager of construction projects, a personal trainer, fitness trainer, and has so much wonderful inspirational work that he is pouring out into this world that I am looking forward to hearing more about, learning more about. But first and foremost, as I always do, I take a quick moment to pause, say thank you to you, sir, for making time for me today. Time is a gift. Once we give it, we cannot get it back. So I truly, truly appreciate you setting aside this time in your day to sit down and chat with me. And with that, Mr. Tucker, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Lana. Thank you very much. What I'd like to do, if you're okay with this, is we could take a couple of breaths, because I find that most things that I get involved in, if I allow myself to get grounded and centered, it really sets the tone for me to, at the very least, to kind of be at my best. So what I'd like you to do, if you're comfortable, I'd like to invite you to close your eyes. We're going to do 3 breaths, and I'll model it for you. So we'll breathe in through our nose, pause, and then exhale through our mouth. And the exhale will be audible. Okay? We'll just do 3. Okay. 1, 2, 3, in through the nose and out through the mouth. Second inhalation, in through the nose and out through the mouth. And a third and final inhalation, big, deep inhalation in through the nose and out through the mouth. And when you're ready to come back into our conversation, I'd like you to acknowledge it by saying, "And so it is."
And so it is.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, now I'm in a different place. I don't know if I have the energy, but we're going to get going now.
Okay.
I usually try to be peppy, but now I'm so mellow and calm. So we're going to talk about you today, Mr. Tucker, and we're going to talk about how wonderful and awesome and amazing you are. And I want to start off by talking about 2 elements of your life that I just think are phenomenal and kind of combine them. And one is the youth mentorship work that you do, as well as your role as a construction manager. Okay. So what I would like to do is, let's assume that you are standing in front of a classroom of students.
Okay.
Maybe it's career day or something like that.
Okay.
And you are tasked with explaining to them what a construction manager is, why it might be a viable career for them, what skills are involved. And I'm going to sit in the back of the class and glean some information, because like many people, we've passed construction sites plenty of times, but we're unaware that there's an individual somewhere in that midst like you doing the phenomenal work that you do. So just kind of give us a rundown of what it is.
Okay. Good day, young, bright minds. I have had the pleasure to be here. My name, you guys know, is Myron Tucker, and I'm a construction manager. And I'm actually here to tell you, actually maybe even sell you on the benefits of why a construction manager is something you might want to think about if you're looking at something in the real estate development industry. So most people are like, what is a construction manager? And so I'm the glue that holds all the pieces together to a project. How many of you, by a show of hands, is what I would probably say, have actually driven by and seen a house under construction? How many of you, by a show of hands, have perhaps driven by and seen a retail space or a hotel under construction? Right. Now, so first and foremost, we divide those up typically. The house would be considered residential, and the retail space and the hotel would be more commercial. And so I, as a construction manager, I've had the opportunity to manage both. Now, you may be wondering, what does managing a construction project do? Yeah. So a term that's also synonymous with a construction manager might be an owner's rep. And actually, me personally, I'll differentiate between the two and kind of tell you why I love them both, but the owner's rep is the thing that really makes me come alive. So the construction manager is the individual that manages the day-to-day activities on a construction site. Okay. I'll give you an example. So let's talk about the house that you've driven by and seen under construction. So what does it take to build a house? You need a foundation, which is concrete typically, right? You need, usually homes are in this country are wood frames, so you need wood, right? You need windows, you need doors, you need a roof, you need asphalt or any kind of roof tile that you put in place. And however you decide to, as I would say, clad the house or put the finish on the house, it might be a brick finish, or it may be a stucco finish, it may be aluminum siding, or it may be a little bit of all of the above. So I'm actually the guy that manages all of those activities. Same thing if we were to flip to the commercial where it's, you get the idea. Now, I used to call myself, because, kids, one day, back in the day, I'm aging myself, they would always say, you need to have this elevator pitch. And so when people get on the elevator, they would say, so what do you do? And I used to say that, when it comes to construction manager, I was like the pit bull. Because I was the one that managed the day-to-day and I made sure that everything fell into place. And then, which, I mean, for all of you, we all know pit bulls, right? What do you know about what are the traits of pit bulls? They're fiercely loyal.
Mm-hmm.
They're smart.
Yes.
Right. And they're athletic.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And they can be trained very well and they follow through with directions. Right. So I used to call myself that. I was the pit bull. I would make sure that everything was done and completed on time. And that's kind of what the construction manager does. Now, the owner's rep, which is another aspect of construction management, is very similar with the following exception. So the owner's rep, I represent the owner. So let's go back to that example of the house under construction.
Okay.
So let's say that Lana Reid says to me, Myron, I want to build this fabulous mansion in Palos Verdes. And I know nothing about it. Do you mind taking on that job for me? And my response would be absolutely. And so what I do as the owner's rep is I would first get clarity and help her gain clarity on the vision of how she wants her house to look.
Okay.
Right. First step. Second step is I would take that vision, and because I am representing her, I would then hire an architect to carry that vision out. Okay. Right. Now, see, here's the great thing about here's how the owner's rep earns his keep. Okay. Oftentimes, the owner's rep is responsible to specifically convey the wishes of the client to the designer. The designer is the architect. Okay. Now that may sound simple or very simplistic, and sometimes it is, but sometimes you will encounter an architect, which is also known as a designer, that has a different vision for what he's building. So, for example, Lana may say to me, I want this fantastic, fabulous home in Palos Verdes, and I want it to have, I want the contents of the home and the design of the home to have a style that's comparable to a Cadillac. In other words, a Cadillac style. Yeah. Now we may encounter an architect that wants to build it based on a Mercedes-Benz style, right? Or maybe a Jaguar. Yeah. So where I come into place is I make sure that the owner's wishes are conveyed specifically to that architect. So
you're like a bridge in between those two.
Correct.
Awesome.
Right. And so then that carries out in all the other aspects of we're using that home for an example.
Okay. So when it comes to both of those, a construction manager or the owner's rep, is it a situation where a college degree is required, or can you start as a low-level construction manager and work your way up, or how does this whole thing progress?
Yes and yes. And so my degree is in construction management from Michigan State. Okay. So there are programs around the US, around the world that offer this curriculum. Okay. Now that is one path. And then another path, because I've met people that have worn whose path was similar as mine. They had a college degree. And then I met some that actually started as a tradesman, maybe a laborer, and worked their way up in an organization and eventually became the construction manager and the owner's rep. Okay, yeah. So both are viable. Both are viable.
Yeah, because some of the young kids I talk to, and it's a reality that we have to kind of put into play is some college is not for everybody. So I was just wondering if it was a viable career option for people that didn't want to pursue college. So it looks like if you want to put in the work, roll up your sleeves, you possibly could become a construction manager.
Right now, I'm gonna tell you something though, and a lot of people don't talk about this much, especially in this country. I think another viable route are the trade schools,
Yes.
right? You know, because everybody needs a plumber, right?
Hmm.
Everybody needs an electrician. Everybody, everybody needs a plumber, electrician. What other trades are we talking about here?
You need an auto mechanic.
I mean, the mechanic. All those are viable options. And the other piece of that is, if you're really good and skilled at that, you can actually, have a very lucrative career working under someone. Or if you are interested in entrepreneurship, that's an avenue to you as well.
Yeah.
And the investment in time is not as much as having to get a 4-year degree.
Awesome. Yeah. What is the other one? HVAC, or heating and air
Yeah,
conditioning. What are you? Yeah.
exactly. Right.
There you go.
Right.
So let me circle back to the construction manager, and because we just brought up, electrician, plumber, heating and air conditioning. So I'm
And
assuming,
fire suppression. Yes.
yes.
Right.
So I'm
Mhm.
assuming on a construction site, there's all these varying individuals that a
Correct.
construction manager is kind of navigating through,
Right.
and everybody as an individual believes that their job is the most important job, and I'm assuming this guy has to wait on this guy to do their job, and you have all these personalities that the
Right.
construction manager has to navigate through. So on a good day and on a bad day, what is the job look for?
So that's a really good question. And I will say that, and I'm sure you know this in your, planning is key.
Okay.
My mom used to say, whatever you put into it, you get out of it. My mom was a teacher.
Mm.
And so, what a very sophisticated construction manager or owner's rep will do is especially with those vital trades, electrician, plumber, HVAC, we used to say fire sprinklers. We now say the new term is fire suppression.
Okay.
Right, right. So, and also if it's a commercial, then we also will factor in the elevator guy, right? Because
Okay.
he's part of that. And so what we do is we have early on in the planning stage, we have coordination meetings.
Okay.
So what we do is we come together and we will bring those trades, the HVAC guy, the plumber, the electrician, fire suppression. Sometimes we'll invite the elevator guy, and we actually sit down and we say, okay,
Okay.
so this is how this puzzle, right, is going to be. These are the pieces of the puzzle for that, because those things are the infrastructure, right, of the they're the guts of the structure.
Okay.
So let's figure out how we systematically can support each other in getting this done. So in other words, we're creating a plan for collaboration early on.
Okay. With fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. What the understanding is, and that's the thing about my industry, I think in any industry, right? I won't swear. Stuff happens.
Stuff
Stuff
happens.
happens.
Stuff
Stuff
happens.
happens. Stuff
Yes.
happens, right? And so what has to occur is you have to have, and this is also key, um, you have to have people that have experience and patience and understanding to understand that,
Gotcha.
because the other piece of that is, okay, so we've got the coordination meetings for those trades, right? And then the schedule. We put together a construction schedule.
Okay.
And the key for that is a construction schedule. And the construction schedule is really like, it's the details of, okay, every piece of this house has to occur at a certain time. And what happens before that can occur and what happens after that occurs. All that goes into the schedule. And if
Okay.
the schedule is done right, then it minimizes those stuff happen days.
Those faux pas. Okay. Okay. I
Yes.
got you.
Hmm.
Okay. And let me ask one more question about the construction management, and then I want to move on to your youth mentorship.
Yes.
Let's say Lana is in front of you and she wants to be the best potential client that she can possibly be for you, whether it be building a home or building a commercial site.
Yes.
What should I bring to the table to make our interaction as positive as possible? How should I navigate? Because I'm assuming that stuff doesn't always, you mentioned schedule, but stuff gets kind of off track, stuff happens. Maybe I just saw recently on, what is it, Next Door, They were digging
Mhm.
in and they tapped into a gas line. So I'm assuming that kind of slowed down production. So
Right.
as a potential client, what should I bring to you so we understand each other, we have the same vision? How do we make sure that from start to finish, we're not just pulling each other's hair out and, just wanting to beat each other up?
So I think what you're asking me, what is an ideal client for me
Yes, yes, in the best possible
in the
way.
best possible way, right? A client that has a little bit of the ideal client is a client that understands my value.
Okay.
The first and foremost, right? Because the way there's always more than one path to get to the end, right? And so if you are hiring me to represent you,
Okay.
the goal is that you're hiring me because you understand I come with a certain level of expertise
Mm,
and wisdom
mm,
and open-mindedness
okay.
and commitment. And the reason I use all those is because again, you may have some experience and maybe you've built a home before, or maybe you had a situation that didn't turn out as well as you would have liked. So
Okay.
you come with that baggage to me,
Ah,
right? Right. And so the way is okay. I would say my ideal client would be you share. Okay, we sit down and we talk. So Myron, this is not my first time at the rodeo. These are the experiences I had in the past. Okay, so I'm listening, right? So the key is active listening on both of our parts.
mm,
If something doesn't, there's no silly question.
okay.
To come and be very clear about your expectations. You know, I I I need this project to be done by X amount of day, and then also be open to understanding that I will always give you honest feedback
Okay.
in a professional manner. So and it needs to be mutual respect between both of us.
Oh. It almost sounds like a short-term romantic relationship that we're building here.
It is, and it's perfect. It's interesting because I built a hair salon in Midtown Manhattan. I just
Okay.
finished that a year ago, and my client and she and I actually we worked on it. We were starting to go down that path right before the pandemic, and then the
Oh,
pandemic
okay.
put things on pause. But even before the pandemic, we actually started doing some visioning work around. We got together and we talked and said, "What kind of space would you like to function in?"
Oh, yeah.
So we actually she closed her eyes, she did some visioning. I took some notes because I'm also a coach,
Yeah.
also, right? And so we spent some time kind of really shaking that out, and I've done that before with people. And so what started to happen was then the pandemic ends, or we get to the point where we can start to have some sense of normalcy.
Yeah.
She starts to look for places in Midtown Manhattan. She's not finding anything. She calls me, she's frustrated. She says, Myron, and I said, stop looking because your energy around trying to find it has become desperate now. So
Yes.
it's not right. You get what I'm saying? So you're not in the same place of receiving. So take a break for 4 weeks. Well, she took a break for like 3 weeks. She started back. She called me. She says, I found the space. She
Awesome.
wanted something with a lot of windows, with a lot of sunlight. And that's the space I built out. And she moved into it about a year ago. And it's a great space and she's thriving. And so all of that comes in because my approach is not, I love what I do. I'm good at it, I believe. And so I've been told.
Mhm.
Um, and so my approach factors in, the human side and also a little bit of the spiritual, like the
Yeah.
visioning work and all those things, which I find is key. And it's something that's integral in my life on a daily basis.
Awesome. That's something I guess I've never really considered, especially when it comes to maybe the small business entrepreneur and picking a space, because you're going
Mhm.
to be spending so much time in there and you want the vibration, the energy to kind of uh, be an asset to you because what is the thing when they design casinos and they're so dark and dreary with no windows, but the concept is to keep you in there with no concept of time. But I
Right.
think, also, like I said, when you're establishing your own business, you want something that brings a sort of energy to you. So I'd never really considered that. And with the hair salons, you want your
Mhm.
clients to feel good and energized, and just factors I just just never really considered instead until I talked to you now. So now I got other stuff to think about. Phew.
Well, it's interesting because one other footnote. So when she started looking, she had her realtor, commercial realtor working. And so none of us knew. And here's the other piece of how the relationship is good is to understand that some missteps may occur.
Okay.
And as long as you own the missteps, right, you're able to own it, learn from it, then you move through it. For example, the space she's in is great. Everything about it is great. Everything she wanted, except for one thing, the water pressure.
And it's a salon?
It's a salon, exactly, right?
Oh.
Right. And so that, I wasn't involved in that piece. And even if I had been, because it was my first time, right, in her commercial real estate. So what we ended up having to do is add boosters, booster pump. So it was an additional cost.
Okay.
Because the landlord the landlord did not feel like he was under any obligation to provide that, and he wasn't. Right. So just, so the other piece of what makes a season, here's the thing about the other young men and young women who are thinking about my industry. Another benefit is people in construction management and owners rep, there's usually no issue around ageism.
Okay.
Because the older we get, we come with more experience.
Okay.
And so that experience is really of value.
Okay. All right. So personality traits of somebody who makes a effective construction manager: patience, what else?
Patience, a willingness to think outside the box.
Okay.
Active listening is key. For me, also noticing body language.
Okay.
And here's a perfect example of that. So let's say you got these trades together, and let's go back to the example of the MEPs, which is mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire suppression guys, and we're doing these coordination drawings, right? So everybody's okay. Does this work for you, Joe? Does this work for you, Fred? Does this work for you, Allison? Right? Because there's women that do this too now, right? I want to acknowledge that, right? Okay. And does this work for you, Jose? Right? Because you get where I'm going with this, right?
Yes,
because all walks of life can do this, right? So, and everyone kind of goes, yes. And I'm looking over there at Allison, and she's doing this, but her energy is kind of like, right? Right. So for me, active listening and active observing. So I might do one or two things based on how I experience her with the group. I may bring it up then. Say, okay, Allison, yeah, you're saying yes, but are you sure? Right. Gotcha. Or what I may do is when the meeting concludes, I may say, Allison, can you stick around for a minute? I'm getting a vibe that something's a little amiss.
Gotcha. Okay.
You don't necessarily, if you're not comfortable letting them know, let me know and I'll take it on. Right. So that's the other piece of why, does that make sense?
Good team leader, a good team leader.
Exactly. Good team player and understanding and being aware of every person, because every person is of value. Sometimes, depending on the circumstances, they may lose sight of it. And so for me as a construction manager, again, like the director, I used to say pit bull, I now say director. Okay, good. Right, because the director also is a leader. Okay. Pit bulls may not be, right? So I consider my director of a movie, right? He puts, and he's there pushing and, and so that's my role, right? I'm rooting for every person to have the best experience while they're working on my project, to complete it on time, go home with no injuries, right? And to make money. Injuries. And to make money. Yeah, and to make money. Right.
Awesome.
Right.
Yeah, because and it's always when you're leading a team and there's all these different components and you want everybody to feel good about what they do and important about they do. And that means you have to navigate the different personalities. And so the person who's nailing in the nails has to feel just as important as the person who's installing the sprinkler system and say, I have value, you have value, and we all are cogs in the wheel of getting this bigger project involved. And that takes effective, talented, wise leadership. So, when you put it in perspective, a construction manager is bigger than just a construction manager.
Correct. And here's the other piece. And here's the thing that a really good construction manager has to be willing to do. If it looks like the HVAC guy is not a team player, then I have to remove him. And I've removed people from in the boilerplate, in the standard verbiage of the contracts that I develop for my clients. that the subcontractor signed, I can sometimes without cause have someone removed. And
Okay.
I've done that because if I don't get the sense that you're a team player,
Okay.
the longer you stay on my project, the
Mm,
longer you contaminate everybody and shift everybody's energy, right? So that's the other thing about being a construction manager or an owner's rep. You really you have to really show up and just bring your. I'm gonna say you need to bring your A game
yeah.
because it's just so many moving pieces, right? Not only the components of the structure, right, but the personalities, like you said.
Yeah.
That's right. So
Yeah. You can't afford to have a bad cancer cell in the mix because it'll spread.
right.
It'll spread.
Yes.
It'll spread. It'll spread. Okay.
Right.
Well, I want to shift now because it seems like we could talk about this for quite some time. And
We could. Yes.
I want to get to all of the other wonderful things that
Okay.
you do.
Yes.
And
Right.
one of the things that's very important to me is you do a lot of youth mentorship. And I think that is just something that is so needed, especially in today's world.
Yes.
Our younger generation is just really battling with so many things. But you have a few projects with the youth that you're involved in, and I
Right.
wrote them down so I wouldn't miss one. But the first one I want to talk about is the Future Cities 2023. What is that about, and what do you do there?
Wow. That obviously you've done your research. So and the way this came about, so yes, I enjoy working with youth. I enjoy being a mentor. I had a mentor. Excuse me, scratch me. I had a mentor. Um, so the Future Cities, it was a project. The Engineering Society of Detroit, and presently I'm in Detroit right now. They were looking for mentors
Okay.
to work with schools throughout the city.
Okay.
Um, and so I was selected to be the mentor for a school called the Detroit Merit Academy. And so it was Future Cities 2023 competition was about getting youth uh, involved in two things: coming up, designing, thinking it through, and coming up with a model and a narrative that would describe how their city, which would be Detroit,
Okay.
would be 100, at least 100 years in the future.
Ah, well,
Right.
okay.
Right. And so what happened is I got together. There were three students that I worked with at the Detroit Merit Academy, and so we initially we just talked it out. For me, when I meet anyone, I always tell them, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me your name, all that,
Mm,
and tell me what you want me to know, and then more importantly, why why the Future Cities competition, for example. So these youth showed up, and they first time their school had been involved. And just, we started, they had a teacher there that was also I worked with. So there were five of us on this team. And so what we did was we actually started out kind of formulating an idea of, okay, so, all right, let's just kind of do some future tripping, right? Let's just say 100 years from now. And what was interesting, how I thought I added value was to get them to think bigger than what they were thinking.
okay.
Like, so for example, they're like, do you think there'll be electric cars in the future? On the roads. And I was like, so I said, well, now I'm really dating myself. Remember the Jetsons? Remember the
Yes,
Jetsons? That's
that was
right,
our
right?
generation, right?
That was our generation. Right, right, right. So, so I was giving them some examples of, 100 years from now, it's probably safe to say that
Yeah,
cars on the roads is probably not even going to be an option.
yeah.
So I was giving them permission. I said, okay, I get that your brains are working, right? So I said, let's just take it to the next level. So something that just an idea that comes in your mind that seems so inconceivable. That's what I
Yes,
want to hear about,
yes.
right? Because I mean, think about 100 years from now, probably somebody said, oh, we're going to take humans to the moon, right?
We grew up on
Right.
Star Trek and Star Wars, so it's possible for us, right?
Anything is possible, right? And that's really what I thought my goal was, to get them to liberate them,
Yeah,
right?
awesome.
Yeah. Right.
And let me put a pencil in it for a quick minute. You mentioned Detroit, and I know around 2008, Detroit was really, really hit hard with the
Yes.
how is Detroit when we're thinking about the vision for these kids? Is Detroit making a comeback now?
Now let me tell you something. So I've lived in multiple. I've lived all over the U.S.
Okay.
L.A., D.C., New York, back to L.A. Yeah, anyway, so to me, a barometer of really what a city is really alive
Okay.
are the number of tower cranes. I count tower cranes. I know I'm a geek, but I come to a city and I count how many cranes are in the sky taking materials.
Okay.
Okay. So I've been back in Detroit, not full time, but the majority of my time for the last 3 years,
Okay.
maybe 3.5 years. Right. 2019 is when I started coming back for today in downtown Detroit. There are 3 tower cranes.
3.
So in other words, yes. So to answer your question, the city, the transformation is manifesting. There are people downtown. I mean, the city is it's and so now they're going back and they're recreating and they're giving each other and residents permission and they're inviting residents to have a seat at the table.
Awesome.
Right.
Awesome.
Right. So
Awesome.
yes,
Awesome. Because
yes,
I know, especially in our communities, because Detroit was a manufacturing town. So a lot
right.
of us were losing jobs and stuff. So I was really concerned at how it was coming back for us. So it's good to see that
Yes,
it's becoming a thriving community again.
yes.
Awesome. I had read, just sidebar, we'll get back. There was a couple that bought some uh foreclosed land and started a beehive
Right.
in there, and I love honey, so it was just one. But anyway,
Okay.
let me get back to you.
No, no, no,
um
no.
another project that you're doing with the youth, and I just love the title because I think it just speaks volumes, and that is the Speak to Be Heard
Yes.
workshops that you do. So explain and tell us what that is about.
Now that's my baby. Now that
Mm.
no that and so that came to me. So it's really 2 things: speak and be heard.
Okay.
And so how that the vision to create that was really because my background, I've done some, I was working with a TEDx New York salon as a part of the organizing team, I've, and also Toastmasters. And so my thought was, there's always room for all of us to be better communicators.
Mhm.
And so I thought, okay, even as adults, right? And so I thought, okay, but let me go back and offer this to youth.
Mhm.
Speak, be heard. Speak, be heard, right? And so the thing is, so of course we want to be able to be, we want to be able to speak and be speakers,
Mhm.
but there's 2 parts of communication, right? You're sharing your thoughts, and also you should be sharing them in such a way that they can be received,
Yes.
honored, and respected.
Yes.
So the workshop, and so I did that. I'm from Flint, Michigan originally, and I was fortunate to do the Speak to Be Heard workshop for 2 consecutive years. One where we were actually in the classroom, and then the second was virtual. And so yeah, so it was yeah, it's and to see, here's the thing, you see these students come in and you see the ones that are really, they get it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I see the value in this. And the teachers saw the value in this.
Okay.
And so you see them and we take them through exercises and prepare them. So what it is so um, first time I did it, it was so I met during their intercession, which is times in between the marking periods. So we would come in. And so the first goal, the first year, my approach was every time I was there 4 times, every time we come in, we'll have a different subject matter. So one was about Black history. And so, so that was the first year. Then I thought it through and that was good. And then the goal was at the end of the year, right? The
Yeah.
students would, every time they spoke, but at the end of the year, they would really, they take all the pieces, put it together and have this great. And that worked for the first year. And then the second year, I thought, okay, so how can I make this different? So the second year, I think I fine tuned it. And it was about the first session was coming up with the idea or your topic. The second session was coming up with your hook or your opening speech.
Okay.
The third session was the body. The fourth session was the conclusion. And then at the end of the year, it gave, each piece was really focused. And I think that made it more effective.
Oh, yes. And because I can see how that can play on a bigger scope, because into conflict resolution, when you can communicate well and put all these pieces together. And I think that's one of the problems that we see our younger generation having problems with, especially in the school setting, is effectively managing conflicts. And that's why we see a lot of, so I see how that communication can play well, not only in the school environment, but that skill will last you a lifetime,
Right.
That is amazing.
And it's funny you talk about the conflict resolution because that apply. The other thing about a good professional is their willingness to admit when they're wrong. So there've been times, I had kind of misdiagnosed a student, right? Or misdiagnosed a subcontractor,
Mm, mhm,
right? There's
mhm.
one thing, and then so to course
Yes.
correcting for us also, if anyone, right? Is to admit, okay, I'm in error, and to acknowledge that, right? Because what that does is, it clears the air so that you can go ahead and get back focused, I think.
Yeah. And
Right.
that's personal growth. I mean, and it comes at certain layers, certain points in our journey, because human nature doesn't want to admit I'm wrong. So
Right.
comes with personal evolution, but it makes the environment so much better when you're existing with other people who can say, you know what, I think I missed the ball on that one. So
Right.
it allows us to all breathe easier in that space. So
What it does is what it does is it showcases our humanity.
yeah.
Right.
And I mean, and we all need to experience that, but it seems like we have such a hard time giving that part of ourselves up into this world. But it just makes us all exist easier, better together. So, yeah.
Right.
Well, let me do one more wonderful thing that you do before I think
Okay.
I've tied up most of your day here, or more than I expected to tie up today.
Yes.
You mentioned this earlier. You are a TEDx organizer, or
Yes.
you have been,
I have
and
been.
you have been, and a lot of people have kind of looked at TEDx with interest, with curiosity, and said, maybe this is something I want to do. So, as an organizer, what type of people are they looking for when it comes to presenters and stuff like that, and being involved in the project? Because not everybody gets chosen, right?
No, that's true. And it's funny because actually, I actually, so what they're looking for is, it's a package, right? It's like anything. So they're looking for someone that has a great idea.
Okay.
So TED stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design, right? And so, and that, I mean, and from that it's grown, but they're
Okay.
looking for someone that has an idea, maybe has done some research to support it,
Okay.
and it's original,
Okay.
and they show with a bit of charismatic, they're charismatic,
Okay.
it's charisma. So I think that, and also the audience in which, because each TED event, usually the organizers have in mind the audience that they're attracting. So that's the other piece, right? So
Okay. And did I read correctly? There is training involved before you actually do present on stage, right?
absolutely, yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay.
So what happens usually, I went through like so you go through the audition or and then once you're selected, then, and this is very necessary, and this is how the TED and the Toastmasters kind of commingle, then you're coached
Okay.
around how to best offer
Okay.
your thoughts or how to share them best with the audience that will be there.
Okay. I do have another thing I want to bring up because it's
Okay.
important. It's important to me. It's very
Yes.
important. You are a life and fitness coach, and eating well, living well, being healthy is very important to me. But at the same time, I also notice that you are um, subscribe to the new thought movement. So,
Right.
and I know one of the core philosophies elements is, how the mind is involved with disease and all of that. Were you health and fitness conscious before your segue into that, or did that transpire after?
Very good question. When I graduated from Michigan State and I was recruited to Southern California. When I came to California,
Oh.
that's when, and you're there now, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. And when I arrived there, just how I was aware, I, how they say sometimes you don't know what you don't know, you don't know.
Yes.
I didn't know that I knew something about my existence in Michigan was not in alignment with my spirit,
Gotcha.
but I couldn't put it to words.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right. And then once I got to California and because what I did when I moved to LA was, this is what I said. And some
Mhm.
friends, they who know me, they'll tell you, I said, okay, so I moved out here to experience life in a different way. So if in fact I'm really going to do that, then every aspect of how I lived back in Michigan, not that there was anything wrong with it,
Mhm.
I'm making that clear. right? But I want to experience something different, which would enable me to experience the newness of me. So I had to be curious. And it was the curiosity that took me on the journey. Yeah, I tried different churches. I tried different workout regimens. I tried different eating habits. I did them all till I found the one that was resonant with me, as far as church, as far as exercise, and as far as nutrition, and as far as the people in which I chose to keep company with.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. I love it. Yes. It's one of those evolutionary process. I'm from the South. And, as a Black family community in the South, there's just stuff that's generationally ingrained in us. And
Yes.
as you start to explore this world, you're like, something's not sitting right with me from what I know, from what I'm experiencing. And you have to chart your own path sometimes, and that leads you in different places, but you have to do what's good with your spirit and what settles in your soul. So, it's always nice to meet kindred spirits who kind of like, I love you guys, but that's just not working for me. So I have to choose my own path.
Right. And what I didn't know then, but I learned shortly after I got to California, and that's been with me now, is I am a spiritual being having a human experience.
That part. Awesome. Awesome. Now, before I go, before I ask you my random question, I do want to let my audience know that Mr. Tucker is a member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated. And he happens to be, I've been doing these interviews since 2016, and he happens to be the very, very first brother of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated on the show. I am so, so honored. As I was mentioning to him, it's not because I haven't asked, it's just he's the first one that said right. Yes to me. So my question to you, being a brother of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity
yes.
Incorporated, how has that experience impacted your life as far as being in the brotherhood and having a male support system?
Good question. I pledged undergrad. Just, so I've been me, and so there were 9 of us. And November 19th of 2022, we celebrated 40 years in the fraternity. And all of my 8 Sands, or 9 of us, Noble Nines are lying. All of us are still alive. We all showed up in Las Vegas and just to honor and celebrate us and being a part of the fraternity. And so for me, I was active in undergrad, and then I became inactive for a number of years. I've only been active in the last maybe 7, 10 years, 7, maybe about 8 years. Okay. Let me tell you something. So when I was younger, because, the undergrad experience is a little different than the alumni experience. And so I was like, okay, I did undergrad, the alumni, I did not see the value at that time, but that's changed. Because what I'm experiencing now is the tenets of the fraternity, the brotherhood and the networking and the support. I'm part of the Detroit alumni chapter of Kappa Alpha Psi, and we have a house here, and I've just been the love and just to walk in a place, to walk in a structure, and all of us are all Kappa men, all. Our whole thing is our mission is achievement. Mm-hmm. And so you come in and you're in the company of all of these brothers that have taken this oath and this pledge for this common unity. And so as adults, it plays out a little different sometimes than when you're undergrad and you're youth and adolescent and still kind of trying to find yourself.
Yeah.
Right. Now on the flip, because I have a keen, clear sense of who I am. And most of the brothers, when you get to the alumni and you're active, they also have a keen sense of who they are. So we come together, and the fellowship that we have, and so the fellowship while we're alive is fantastic. And then when we make our transition, my dad was a Kappa also, and my dad died a couple of years ago. And so and I experienced that before, but the support that me and my family received from the brotherhood. Yes. They came to give him this big send off, and they were there and they knew him. And so the benefits for those of you who are considering it, you get the brotherhood, you get the network. And here's the other thing now that, I'm working with doing business enterprise work with other men of Kappa Alpha Psi.
Awesome.
I'm working with an architect now on some upcoming projects who's a Kappa.
Awesome.
I've talked to some brothers here in Detroit about they're doing some real estate development. So the opportunities for not only fellowship and as far as entrepreneurship and working together with other people that look like me and you, which is important. I get a chance to experience, and I have experienced all of that.
Awesome.
And we still, and you know what? And Kappas, I'm gonna tell you, we can still,
y'all still pull out them canes. Y'all still pull out them canes.
You know what? Absolutely. I got a couple of my sands and some of my personals. They still, they still got the gift of twirling that cane. That's just what I tried it. Sometimes you try something, okay, this is what I'm good at, and this is what I'm not good at. So I go and I support the brothers that can. I'm not that guy, but you know what? I'm there rooting. And that's the other thing about the fraternity is I'll end this like, what's nice is you have a bunch of Black men, various ages, have taken this oath, done the pledge, and you really see the brotherhood as they are rooting for all of us to rise and to be the best that we can definitely be.
Awesome. So I love it. I love it. Sometimes people only outsiders looking in only see the undergraduate aspect of all of the Divine Nine, but they don't see like when it comes to even undergrad, but alumni and the work that you guys are pouring into the communities afterwards, into each other. And it's just this big tribe of love and support that sometimes gets a bad rap. And I think people need to really see all of the positive elements, all the benefits of it. And just, when you look at the community work that just across the board, north, south, east, and across the world, because a lot of the Divine Nine is global now. I see chapters everywhere. So it's just these arms all over. It's just phenomenal. But anyways, thank you for being the first, and you're not going to be the last because I'm going to keep I'm going to keep knocking on the door. I'm persistent, so I'm going to keep.
And I will assist you in any way possible so that you can, I will spread the word. I will spread the good news.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, I'm going to ask you my random question, and then I'm going to ask for you to let us know how we connect with you if we want some help with our kids, or if we want some construction projects, or we're going to have to figure out how to connect with you. But let me do this first. Let's see what we've got here for the random question here. What is your least favorite food?
Sushi.
My friend, well, no, I like the vegetarian. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have.
Oh no, actually, that's not true. All right. I have to admit this. I don't like avocado.
My friend. Okay, me neither. Good fat. I don't like it.
And I know it's a superfood, and so I will put it in my smoothie because I can't taste it. But like the guacamole and all, I'm just not down with it. I know the value, but that it would be avocado.
The first house bought had an avocado tree in the back, and they would just sit there rotting on the ground, and they're like, I don't like them. I don't like them. My friend, my kindred soul. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Tucker, tell us how we connect with you if we want to get you on board to mentor the kids, or if we want a construction project we need help with. Just let us know how we connect with you.
Okay. Well, tuckercmservices.com. Is one way. The other way is you can find me through LinkedIn, Myron McPhee Tucker. Instagram is I have two sites. I have the Myron Tucker Speaks, which is more focused on the youth development and speaking, and then I also have the other site is traveling construction manager, because I do travel and manage construction projects. I'm very selective about the projects I get involved in, and then my email tuckerconstructionmanagement@gmail.com.
Well, sir, I truly enjoyed our time today. I truly appreciate you making time. I appreciate you pouring out into the younger generation, and I just appreciate your soul. Thank you for making time for me today.
You're welcome, and thank you so much for the opportunity.
Awesome. That is all for this week's episode of The Male Perspective. I'm your host, Lana Reid, and I will see everybody next time.